Okay, we have the one, the only Sean Szeps. There's an S there, but we're just gonna what?
Pew, 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 pew. Drop the S and go right to the Z.
Why is the S even there?
It's a really good question, and not a question I need to answer because it's not I married into that last
Okay,
name.
you're just like, what? So what was your last name before?
Gallerani.
And you didn't want to keep that. You just love your partner so much that you're just like,
so into it. I loved the idea of being SS, Sean Szeps.
That's kind of cool.
I was so just drunk in love, and the idea of taking his last name after a lifetime of thinking you're not ever going to be able to get married, you little homo.
Yeah.
I just thought, look at me, I'm going to do it. And I did.
I did not take my husband's last name.
I'm all about it.
Yeah, I was going to. So our kids are hyphenated. So our kids are Sursok McEwen. He's McEwen. I'm Sursok. And then I was like, bitch, why don't you take my last name?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, why do I have to get rid of my last name? It's taken me 20 years to build this name.
You're like, are you not a feminist? Oh, so you're not a feminist. Good to know.
So you're...
So you don't like women. Got
it. You don't think we should have equal rights. And he was like, no, I like my last name. I'm like, but you don't like your family that much. So like, why don't you take my name?
Exactly.
You like my family.
My family was offended.
Were they really?
The line stops with you, like that energy.
Is that what they said?
No. But I want to make it dramatic for the podcast. But they were shocked.
Yeah.
I think you raise a son, especially back then.
Yeah.
You have ideas of what that's going to mean. So it was
Right.
going to be with a woman and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Now you've already disrupted it by marrying a man. And
Right.
now you're going to change your last name? How very dare you?
Were they supportive when you were younger? Like when you obviously knew that you were gay at a certain age?
So my family...
And is gay the right term? I have to ask you.
Yeah.
Is it queer?
I love gay.
Are we allowed to say it?
Definitely.
Okay. I feel like there's like a
Yeah.
movement where we can't say it.
I think every time you speak on behalf of a larger community, you're
have to
you're
ask.
going to screw yourself over with a large chunk of it.
Right.
Queer is an umbrella term that we have taken over. It
Okay.
used to be used against us, and now we are reclaiming it. But it's the umbrella term for anything other than heterosexual.
Gotcha.
So to be queer is to be bi, is to
Bisexual.
be trans, is to be non-binary, is to be
Okay.
gay. But there are other people in our community who feel most connected to queer as their label.
Right.
And so that is confusing for some straight
It
people.
is confusing.
I am
And we don't
gay.
want to get it wrong.
Yeah. And with cancel culture and
We're very nervous to get it
troll,
wrong.
exactly. You're like,
I was like,
eggshell,
what did I
eggshell.
do wrong this time?
But I love gay.
Okay, gay's okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So did your parents, you knew you were gay what age?
I think for sure, like cemented,
Yep.
10.
Okay.
Aware that I liked boys, 7.
Okay.
My mom said she knew I was, quote, different when
Yeah.
I was like 3.
Okay.
She was like, this is a very flamboyant young boy.
Yeah.
He is not like all the other boys. And my dad was like, oh, that's so early. That's ridiculous. I waited till he was 4.
Yeah.
So they understood.
Right.
But strict Roman Catholic family.
Wow. So how did they treat you when they found out that you were gay?
My mom is a mama bear. And at her core, like at her center, she's what I like to call a good Christian woman, which is
Yeah.
just the values of Christianity as its most positive.
Right. Right.
Respect everyone, treat people you
Mhm.
want to be treated. And she just believes currently and believed back then that like, well, God made him this way.
Right.
So there's
And I'm not going to not love my son
Yeah.
any less.
exactly. I
Yeah.
think the community, the
Mhm.
church, they were the ones with the problems, but she showed me from the first moment of coming out to her at 4 a.m. with a
Yeah.
letter I had written that she was
Oh.
never going to struggle. And when family members didn't handle it as well, when the church didn't handle it well, when the community did, she just never deviated from full support. So I always felt if the world is shit, I got my mama.
Oh my gosh, you're going to
Who
make me
cares?
cry. And how was your father?
My dad and I are very close.
Right.
We've always been very close, and he's a wonderful, supportive man. But I think at that time, even though he had had about a decade to grapple with what it was going to mean, he just didn't have the communication skills.
Right. And
Think-
back in that generation, they really don't.
Exactly. And think about like his father, my grandfather, like barely spoke, let
Right.
alone showed emotion.
Right.
So the man he is today, he would have handled it much better. But what he did was he said, we've always known, and he rolled over and went to bed. It was very short. I think he actually probably felt, as we've spent time unpacking it, that sentence was, it's fine. We've been prepping for this.
Yeah.
But he just couldn't. And he beat himself up, and my mom beat him up over it. Like,
Oh.
it was tricky. And in that moment, I think I decided, okay, well, he he doesn't support me.
He doesn't love
Even
me. He
though
doesn't
that's not
care.
the
He doesn't.
case.
Yeah.
It took probably a full decade of him showing me support in other ways, and then us talking about it probably 15 years later to go, man of his times.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think a lot of queer people, young queer people, get very frustrated when people don't accept them right away.
Yeah.
We grapple with it for a very long time, but we expect you to figure it out instantly.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're not supportive. Now, as an adult and a father, I'm able to look back and go, religious, 80s, 90s, who their parents were. And I think I got out pretty damn good.
And they've only, I give myself grace when I think about, I have a 10-year-old and a 5-year-old. It was like the first time I've ever had a 10-year-old. So like, this is the first time I've ever been the age that I am now with a 10-year-old. So I'm not going to do everything the way that I should do it. And then the second child kind of gets it better because you've already been through it before. It's like the first time he'd ever had to go through that. It's also, think about like the generation before them and the tools that they had, which was even less. I think just giving our parents and even their parents grace because they did the best that they could with the tools that they had at the time that they had them.
Oh, totally.
But you just forgive the way that they react because they're just doing the best that they can.
Becoming a parent is the greatest gift because it forces you to look at your parents and go, wait a second, they were the shitty 20-year-olds like figuring it out.
Yeah.
Like my dad would have been like younger than me.
Wow.
With full ass 15-year-old figuring his stuff out in the world, just tripping through day to day. And also when we think about grace for people of a different generation, like their understanding of what gay meant, like,
I mean,
was death. It was just the worst case scenario.
Right.
You're going to die. You are promiscuous. That is what it means. And so, especially in a religious environment where you're only going to be getting a lot of the negative storylines, you know, the little kid comes out to you and your first thought is, it's not going to be a good life for him. And you react the way a normal human would react.
And then when you told them that you wanted a family at some point, how did they feel about that? And how was that process? Because I know a lot of my friends who are gay and queer wanting to start families. And I wonder what that process has been like. Is it a hard process?
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah.
My story is unique because I knew from a really early age, like foundational core memories, I wanted to be a mother, like a mom.
Yeah.
I have memories of my mom being like, you can have any stuffed animal you want from the Beauty and the Beast show. Which one do you want? And I was like, where's the Mrs. Potts stuffed animal? They didn't make a Mrs. Potts. She's obviously the one running the show. Like we'd watch Brady Bunch and I'd be like, wow, that mom, look at the way she's juggling a job. She's dealing with all these kids, her idiot husband who's not helping. I just early on thought, and this is before I understood gender, before I understood sexuality, if you had a choice between leaving the house, going to work, coming back and sitting on your ass and drinking a beer, or being the one who plans parties and emotional support system and clearly the puppeteer of the planning and the creativeness and the emotions, I want that. That's the one I want. Obviously, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 years later, when I come to terms with the fact that you're gay, so you're not going to be able to get married because that's not legal. And you're definitely not going to be able to have kids because there is not a singular example that you see, not in media, not in movies, not in songs. If you did see yourself represented in the media, ooh, you were like the dead person on a television show, someone in jail for, you know, giving a blowy. Like it wasn't ever good.
Right.
So what I did at probably around 10 is I just buried parenting.
Yeah.
So as my parents would say, like, do you want to have kids? I, in the beginning, would lie. Yes, I want to have a wife. Yeah. I think either that or I'll be a priest. I'm not sure. We'll have to decide.
For the church.
Yep, because I just love God so much. It has nothing to do with
he
the
loves
fact
me.
because I don't want to be a sinner. Jesus. But then when they would ask later after coming out, I just built an armor. And I'm sure you have queer friends who have the armor on still right now. Their personality becomes, and this is because of internalized homophobia. No, that's for straight people.
Yeah.
Why would I, those gross, disgusting kids, I want all the money for myself. I need to go to Mykonos. It's a whole identity we create. And so from probably like 12 or 13, all the way up until I got married and met my husband, that was my identity. I will not have children. That's gross. That's for breeders. That's for you breeders. And I'm gonna have my mimosa on my holidays and spend lots of money on my big houses. I'm not saying that because there's some queer people right now that are furious. They're like getting ready to send me a DM. I'm not saying all queer people are like that, but I am saying the psychology and science backs up the why. Like that was the world we lived in. And so it really took falling in love and wanting to do it with him. Yeah. And then the world changed right in front of our eyes, right in front of us. Goosebumps. For me, it was like, okay, maybe this is something I could re-explore. And I had to, in therapy, go all the way back till I was 5 and go, oh, that initial dream, you're allowed to have that again.
I've always had that. But the process is it a difficult one in Australia? I mean, the US there's a lot that goes into it.
So I was living in America.
Oh, you were?
I was living in Los Angeles. Josh and I met in New York City, spent about a decade together.
Oh, that's right. You have an American accent.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just thought you had an Australian accent. I just had this God shot moment. I was like, wait, do we both have an American accent?
We do. The end of my sentences, I'm picking up.
But you live here.
Oh, yeah, I live here 7 years.
Okay, so we get each other.
Yeah, we do. So, but I think we should talk about both. So in America, at the time, surrogacy is the only place you can do it legally.
Right.
At the time was America. Mexico had become illegal. India had become illegal. All these countries had basically done it and then made it illegal. And America was basically the safe haven for every country. So much so that the surrogacy agency we went to, the introduction video is just an Aussie gay guy. Being like, come on down to, Mike, you'll love this.
Come on, you'll love it. Just stick a sperm in.
But what Josh and I did, so commercial surrogacy where you give financial compensation to the surrogate is illegal in New South Wales. It is illegal in Victoria. It is illegal.
Still?
Oh, yeah. You could go to jail.
Someone can do it, but you can't
out of the goodness of their heart. Yeah. Without financial.
We don't pay for it.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that?
It's an interesting, I've never heard it explained from someone who works in policy, but I've heard it explained by people who want to change the law as a unique combination, both empathetically that are coming from a good place of feminist law that believes probably justifiably that women can be and have been manipulated by men in the past to do things for them.
Right.
Under the guise of we'll pay you, but in actuality it's being forced. And then you also have a unique like renter's law, which is like you can't rent someone's womb. So out of the goodness of your heart, you can do it in Australia. There are absolutely women who
just
do.
Pay for their rent.
Pay for the rent. But I'm all about like if this is something you love and you want to do it and you love being pregnant, but you're finished with your family, and even if you wanted to do it out of the goodness of your heart, you have to go to doctor's appointments. You have to take time off of work. You have to buy new clothes as you stretch. Your food intake changes. You should be compensated for all of that and more. So at the time, when I think back to the couple months after we got married, I said, I really want to have kids. And he said, cool, what do we do? I only knew that adoption and fostering existed.
You're right.
I had not heard of surrogacy. I don't know that most people had. And I saw on Facebook a girl named Lyndon, a friend of mine from college, posted like pregnant with number 4. And then she like wrote out a whole thing and I skipped that entirely. And I just messaged her like, oh my God, you're pregnant. Congrats. You and your husband must be so happy. And she said, oh, I'm a surrogate. Rushes to Google, types in surrogate, realizes what it is. And she said, I would love to carry for you and Josh. It didn't end up happening, but that was the moment where I was
that was your sign.
It exists. And I'm not like spiritual. I'm not really like big into like universal messages, but I did decide in that moment at that computer while looking at that Facebook post that I would do surrogacy. Like that if I could have a biological connection potentially to me and my husband, which at the time and still presently mostly is not possible. If I could have egg donation from my family and sperm from his or vice versa, that might be something we would explore if we could.
So then, and tell me if this is overstepping, how do you choose who gives the egg, who gives the sperm? Yeah. How do you choose which part is from you, which part is from him?
Yeah, no, not overstepping at all. The first thing we did was we told everyone in our orbit, like friends, family, that it was a process we wanted to go down. We continue to go to adoption sessions and fostering sessions so that we had a plan B and a plan C, because at the end of the day, it just was about being a parent. It wasn't any one path. And I told every female related to me, that there was this story out of Australia of a sister donating to her brother the eggs, and then a different surrogate that carried. So it was like 3 pieces of this puzzle.
right.
And I just like not so shamelessly emailed it to like my cousins and my aunts. And like I have lots of cousins and sister and like
Like,
everyone.
who
I
wants
was
to
just
be
like,
part of this
yeah, like
baby?
if that's something you want to do. At the end of the day, I'm really close with all of them. I'm a big family guy.
Yeah.
And Josh did the same thing on his side. So I think we thought this isn't going to happen.
Like, no one's gonna.
Who's going to do this?
Who's gonna donate their
Maybe
egg?
someone would want to carry as like, I would love to be a surrogate for you, but I'm not going to like do the whole biological connection thing. And a year went by. And there were 3 people in particular who I was biologically related to, and then 6 girlfriends, like who were very asking the follow-up questions, wanting more information. What would this look like? And at that moment, I just thought, we'll see. I'll give all the information that I can.
Yeah.
Someone will have to make a decision at some point. Most of the people will kind of pick off. And then on New Year's Day in 2016, we got a phone call from someone who I am related to, who called us on New Year's. And I just thought like, Happy New Year. Hey, Slay, we're in London.
Slay.
And she's like, I'm going to do it. I'd like to give you my eggs.
Oh
I
my
think
God.
this is like the greatest gift that I could ever possibly give you. I think it bonds us beautifully. This is something you deserve. It would allow you to feel, biologically connected to your children. It's the least that I could do. And I just could not believe it. Like obviously I had planted the seeds, but I didn't think
it's like when you find out
happen.
you're pregnant, you're just like, wait, what? It works?
Yeah. Couldn't believe it. So right away, when that decision's made, then it's immediately not my sperm, right? It has to be Josh's because genetically that would not be good.
Yeah, no.
We made that decision. We pushed right forward to find a surrogacy agency that does all of it. They do the IVF, they do the finding of the surrogate, they do the payment, the lawyers, birth certificates, everything, one-stop shop. And it costs in Australian dollars like $250,000. Wow. So in America, that's like 125. Yeah, around one's higher than that.
Which
it is
still
a lot. It's a
money.
privilege.
And do you guys like split the costs? Like how do you guys?
My husband's 10 years older than me.
Gotcha.
So by that point in my career, I was just getting to a point where I could bring some money to the table, but he had a lot of savings.
Yeah.
And so we'll give him the credit that a majority of our savings went to that. And we took out a loan. Like we did what we needed to do to make it possible. It's funny. At the time, it was the most stressful, such a financial burden, consumed by how are we going to pay it off and what happens if it doesn't work the first cycle and all that stuff. But never.
That's right. Because if it doesn't work, you have to do it again.
Yeah, of course. Anyone who's gone through IVF that's listening knows. Like it's driving a car.
But is it
off a cliff.
100,000 every time? No. It's just
the
for
IVF
that
portion
part.
would be
40,
10 to
20.
50 probably, depending on, I don't know, all the complications.
Still.
Yeah. And then the actual implementation costs money. So you'd have to do that each time.
Are they identical twins?
They're not. So
they're not. So both of the eggs took.
Yeah.
Wow.
At the time, they don't push you down a path, but they show you the data. And the data shows that if you want 1, putting 2 in increases the likelihood to like 90%. It's like such a high number. If you put 1 in, it back then dropped, I think, to like 60. And because of the financial cost attached to it, if you found a surrogate who would be more than happy to carry 2, it's an option. And so for us, I think we just wanted to be a parent and we knew we wanted to give siblings if we could. And so it was like, well, if we could get it out of the way once, let's try. But if not, we'll just keep on going through, hopefully with the same surrogate.
Oh, this is such an amazing story. And when you saw the faces of your children, was it just one of those moments that it just, I mean, as a mom, I had 2 C-sections, so they come out very differently, but you get handed these babies and now you're a dad. Like it's just so incredible. The whole process. Were you part of the whole process of it?
So our surrogate lived all the way in Minnesota.
Oh, right.
And so we went to all the appointments via Zoom. She came and did the egg retrieval in Los Angeles because that's where our doctors were. Josh flew and saw her to be with, I think at like 6 months. And we have a really good relationship now. So they've come to Australia. We've gone to Christmas there. But the truth is, to answer the question, it was a lot more severe than even a straight man in a straight relationship because there's no one in your house that's giving you that reminder that you're about to become a parent. There isn't the constant, oh, you can't drink. look at your belly, or
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
carrying.
It's not like you're forgotten, but it's not on your frontal lobe 24/7.
And sometimes I did forget.
Yeah.
I'd be like, back
Wait,
then,
we're having a baby.
I'm in LA, like smoking a doobie on my porch, which is legal there.
Very legal.
And I'm just like, it hit me. I'd be like, wait a second.
We're having a baby.
There was a baby crying, I remember, in like the apartment next door, and I was like bitching about it. I'm like, can't those parents get, oh God. And Josh Turney's like, that's going to be us in 2 months. I was like, it is? Oh my goodness.
And then on the airplane.
Right? So you just forget. So 2 things happened. I think in that moment of becoming a parent, it probably hits you a little bit harder because you haven't been thinking about it maybe as much as the average heterosexual. But then I also had this moment that was completely out of my control, did not expect it at all. But I had a moment of holding my daughter because she came first. Cooper, my son, had some complications. And I thought, for all of human history, people like you didn't get this option. For all of human history, people like you had to lie. They had to get into fake marriages. They had to have fake fantasies in their head to hopefully be able to get hard, to live a life of lies. And even if they didn't, and they powered throughout many parts of human history in any culture to be themselves, the life they lived was not easy. And when it came to getting married, impossible. And when it came to having children, just not on the cards. And when I held her, that came flooding through me. You are so lucky to be alive today.
Now.
Like, I can't believe, that was my thought process. Like, I can't believe you were born now.
Yeah.
And that this option, that you fell in love, and when you fell in love and decided to get married, boom, it became legal. And then when you had kids, boom, society had evolved enough. How lucky are you? And I remember thinking, so emotional, like, don't forget that.
Yeah.
Do it. Don't do it for them, but it was the thought process I had. Like, do it for all the gays who couldn't, was the thought process I had.
Oh my God, I'm in tears. I've done so many interviews, and this is the first time I've cried. Because it is so true. Like, you don't think about, we get so caught up in the day-to-day of life, and you don't realize how lucky we are to be living in the times that we are. And yes, I'm sure people in 10 years' time are going to feel that way too.
Yeah.
But the opportunities we get, and the convenience, and the joy that we just, and the help, and the advancement we have in science, our families didn't have that.
Not at all. It's very easy, and professional advocates should spend their time trying to make things better, and they should intellectually dissect what's not working. But even in our lifetime, the shift for gay people is insane.
Yeah.
If you had gone back 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 150, 180 years and said that they will just go to school drop-off and like be a part of the PNC, like the parent association, and live with everyone else and have kids like everyone else, and that life would be, and that there would be boxes to check, and that there would be 2 men on the birth certificate, like they'd be like, that will never happen. And then in my lifetime, which is a short one, for all of it to occur is you got to stop, pinch yourself, and go, I know there's work to be done, but wow, has there been a lot of great work being,
and how wonderful to also be in places like the US and Australia, because there's so many countries where even being gay, you will be killed.
Absolutely.
And I can't believe we even still live in a time like that.
I know. Wild.
Well, that was an incredible journey through history of how you made your babies.
Yes.
And nothing that I thought we would talk about today. But okay, so then you started your content creation pretty much based in being like a dad in Australia?
Yeah. So I obviously had an Instagram account in America, but it was just me posting pictures with my friends, like with grainy, ugly, like edited images, really thought I was a supermodel.
Yeah.
And when the kids were born, I had decided I was going to be a stay-at-home parent. I had only worked in social media. My first job in social media right out of college, 2011.
And what did you work? Like what department?
I was in advertising agencies
Okay.
in the marketing department. So
Okay.
I started as a community manager, typing and responding back to people on Twitter.
Okay.
And then I evolved to being a social media manager, running campaigns for Nespresso and eBay. And then I
wow.
became a strategist and then the director of social and then the head of social and strategy. So my
Right.
whole career was in social prior to deciding I'm going to share stuff online.
Okay.
But I knew in the back of my head, like I was the one doing influencer contracts. Like I negotiated and worked on the
Right.
George Clooney Nespresso, like celebrity
Like,
contracts.
right.
So I was negotiating with talent managers, working with PR teams,
Mm.
on set with every influencer in this country in the parenting space. And the whole time, I'm a strategist. The whole time I was like, how could you do this better? What would you do differently? How could
Mm.
you retain that client? This
Mhm.
is how they're giving you their data. What could you do better? They're
Right.
pitching in 5 sentences in an email through the publicist. You're going to build a deck. I just started to map out, I really think I could make this as a career and
Right.
not just be kind of successful, but
Mm.
like make it a big financial
Mhm.
money horse.
So did you put a whole strategy together for you
Mhm.
and what your brand would look like and what,
Mhm.
and then you just decided to trial and error, or did you just go full boat? You're just like, I'm going to do this 5 times a week, post 5 times a week, and then see where the chips fall and see if this is going to do anything? Or
I'm
did you
like
just know it was going to be successful?
one of the things I understood was that there were 5,000 mothers to choose from,
Mm.
and there was like 100 dads, and of that, there were 2 that were gay. And so I knew the odds.
Okay.
There are going to be 2 other competitors
Mm.
in the gay fatherhood space. 2 of them are not silly. What would happen if you carved out a niche for being funny?
Right.
Like it was just right in front of me to look at.
Right.
And so I understood, obviously, you're going to have to build a reputation and you're going to have to create content that's high quality and you're going to have to understand the algorithm. But I really did think if I stuck to the plan,
Mm.
that the brands would have no choice, that I just would get more work than the average person
Yeah.
because of the niche that I could
Right.
live in.
And then do you set aside, okay, I'm going to do this because you're a stay-at-home dad, right? So that takes a lot of time.
Mm.
Do you carve out time? Do you carve out days? Do you like time manage when your content, do you batch
Back
content?
then, I was not so strategic
You were
as
just
far
like
as
just
batch
trying to,
capture because the
right.
kids, when I used to show my children, they're not online
Yeah.
anymore. But back then, I knew the overall approach to my content, but I just captured it in real time. They're so little, they were
Yeah,
easy to work
yeah,
with,
yeah.
right? You just like, and
Yeah,
sit them there, take a
yeah.
picture, and family photo, take a picture.
Yeah.
Back then, before video and reels had
Mm.
become the primary way to get reach, a picture of the 4 of us blew up because it's different.
It's so
There's
cute,
some gay
right?
people and they have children and they're all really adorable.
Right.
And so back then it wasn't so, when I went back to work 18 months into their lives, that's when it became, okay, you're going to work 4 days a week. You're going to have a day for content. You're going to batch as much as you
Mhm.
can so that when you're at your actual job in social, you can be posting on the side. And I set a
Yeah.
goal for myself. I told my boss, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be here 100%. But if this Instagram ever gets financially to the place where it's matching my director level salary, I'm out of here. And I think it
How
took,
long?
I worked there for 2 years and then the
Okay.
Instagram just surpassed my salary. And I thought, okay, time to go.
What do you think people do? So if someone's starting Instagram, because everyone wants to, I have followers based on the work that I've done in film and TV, and then I've moved it into a business.
Yeah.
But there are times for me there are ebbs and flows. Like, right, April was huge, and then like for 2 months it's not.
Yeah.
So I always look at the content and go like, what's working, what's not working?
Mm.
What do you think? If you look at someone, because that's what you did for a living, you look at someone's feed, what is the first thing that you look for? Like if you're a brand,
Yeah.
what do you look for?
First, for like, what's their tone of voice?
Mhm.
Are they safe?
And what does
Meaning,
safe mean?
safe might mean, this will make people upset, but like, how often are you talking about politically charged things?
Right?
What are the words that you use? Are you like a heavy, heavy swearer?
Could you swear a few times?
Definitely.
Okay.
And it depends on the brand. There are brands like eBay that were fun and young and hip and loved personality and loved that people might be a little bit politically charged. And then there are other more sophisticated, posher brands, like say Nespresso. They all come with an understanding of who their target audience is, and they want to find like-minded creators. So we would do all of that. The other thing you are looking for is engagement. It is not about how many followers you have. I want to make that so clear. I had less than 20,000 followers making more than $100,000 a year. So it's not that you need to have hundreds of thousands of followers, millions to make money. What you need is a highly engaged audience.
And what is highly engaged? Like, what is a percentage?
So I mean,
what is someone with 1 million followers? What should their engagement be?
If they have 1 million, gosh, that's a low percentage. Kylie Jenner, you're fine with like a 1 to 3% engagement rate, because you just expect the bigger they get, the less their followers don't have access to them. It's not a relationship, right? It's not like, hey, Sean, I respond to almost everyone still, and I get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of messages a day. I still have the time. When you get to your numbers, that's too hard, right? You just can't. It's not possible.
It's hard sometimes because, well, sometimes I don't understand why something that I think is so not your best goes to 22 million, and the things that you think are your best go to 100,000.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that then you go, well, is it a crapshoot, or is there actually strategy and there's something that you're doing that maybe you don't see?
I definitely have a serious understanding of the algorithm. So the platform actually gives us a lot of intel into what will do well. The head of Instagram, who you can follow, I think the account is Morrissey, he like every week does Q&As where he'll be like, currently, reels he'll just admit it. Like is the way in which you grow your page. It is that content is served in the algorithm higher than a static image. So people who continue to show up posting static images are ignoring the triggers of how to grow. It doesn't mean your audience won't see your content, but it's by no means leaning into the machine that you have chosen to make a career in. So I'm always taking that into consideration. I also believe back in the day, you could post whatever you wanted about every aspect of your life and people would gobble it up. The only people who can still do that are celebrities from television, music, who people love them for something else. But if you are a creator that people didn't know about, you don't have TV to back that up. You really have to be sure that you are delivering for the people who follow you some form of consistency.
That they show up for you for.
The term is retention, right? How can I keep you there? So I say to people, I do a lot of strategy work with other influencers. You can show as much or as little as you want, but if you'd like to increase the likelihood that people stay, and as you grow, they stay, you have about a maximum of 3 pillars. And those pillars should be connected somehow in tone or visual appeal. If you're silly, you can be silly about fashion and silly about food and silly about parenting.
Right.
Also, is there some consistency?
Right.
Is it that it's always you and that you're always in your home or that you're always in your kitchen? Or are you bringing the same energy? There are people who are huge. Elise Myers in America is a really well-known creator. She doesn't bring consistency in the subject matter, but she is always the same. And that is what keeps people there.
Right.
And so when I'm a brand looking for people, I am looking like, who are you? What's your essence? And is there something you provide that all of the other creators do not? Because I have to go then to the CEO of Pet Barn, which is a pet store here, and I have to go, we're picking these 4 people, and here's why. I can't say they're 4 moms and they're all white and they like their kids. That isn't enough. I have to go and say, so what we provided for you is we have a comedy creator who's a woman. We have a father who's a little more serious. We have an Aboriginal woman who is showing a beautiful diversity. And that is what you have to think about. So if you're just posting willy-nilly and hoping that it's going to work for you, I would just challenge you to say, what would happen if you have a 1-page document where you wrote out, who am I? Who am I talking to? What's the tone? What's the visual aesthetic? And then for 3 months, just try to be incredibly consistent with that one strategy and see what happens.
So fascinating.
I love it.
I'm so glad I met you. Yes, I just have so many questions. Is probably that I should ask you outside the podcast because it is fascinating because when you are an actor, there's so many things that you do, right?
Mm,
So like all of a sudden you're hosting something or you're doing a podcast or you're working with a fashion brand and it does seem a bit inconsistent.
mm.
And I think that's one of the differences between someone like you who's a content creator and someone who's more like in the public eye for like a movie, let's
Yeah,
say. It kind of gets a little murky, you
it's
know?
so true. I mean, everything I just said is thrown out the window if you come to the platform as a star. Like,
Right.
I have good friends who are on television who that's their background. And so a majority of their followers are coming to them because they just like what they
Right.
represent or a character. And I really think I want to see people want to see every aspect of your life. And so you don't have to be so niche and focused.
Right.
The creator driven world where I'm a nobody to you until you see my content and then you're following for no reason other than you liked that one piece of content. Like how
Mm,
can I ensure
right.
that you're continuing to be
Right.
entertained? It's
Right.
not so dissimilar to building a marketing strategy for a television show
Right.
or a movie. It's like,
Right.
okay, they came for season 1. Why are they staying? It's for the
Right.
characters, it's for the Paris, for Emily in Paris. It's for the fashion.
Have you watched that show? I
Of
haven't.
course.
I haven't yet. Everyone's like, you must watch it. I'm like, no, I'm still in Sex. Have you watched Sex and the City?
Every single episode.
The
I watched Sex and the City 16 times.
the first season.
And in
Oh my
Just Like
God.
That. And every
I know.
movie.
The Just Like That isn't that great, but we'll still watch it for
I
the-
will never stop.
Even
You-
though it's so bad,
You're
it's
going
like
to
sucking a
dangle
sore
in front
tooth.
of me, hey, here's these characters you grew up with.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you more information about them. I
Right.
don't care if it's garbage.
Do you think it's garbage?
I mean, is it as good as the original?
You're
No.
like, how can I
But
say this politically
I
correct?
mean, I still love the fashion. I still love
Ugh,
the acting from the
Carrie
core
Bradshaw's
girls.
hair.
I'm into it.
I'm into it too.
I will never stop watching. But it
love
is
it.
like the reason I went to New York. It's the reason I'm gay. Like I will
That's
never
the
stop. I
show.
will never stop.
Oh my God, I'm so grateful that you came on this show. Thank you so much for being here. Before you leave, we do 2 segments. One is
Mhm.
your 2 favorite slang Aussie words.
Okay.
And then the last segment is your biggest shit show moment.
Okay, got it.
And it doesn't have to include shit like our
Mm.
last
It can.
interview.
It totally can.
It can totally include that.
But Bogan just feels good. Like if I'm doing an Aussie accent, I need to like get into
Do
it.
an Aussie accent with it.
In late September of last year, there was this Bogan, mate. Yeah. I mean, I can do a pretty good Aussie accent. That's
It's
not
pretty-
terrible.
It's pretty good. Are you losing a bit of it? You're American.
No.
No.
That's a choice. Like I had a
That's a choice.
I had a girlfriend who moved here
I lost
before
mine.
me.
I lost my Aussie accent.
And she had a full blown
was a
Aussie
choice.
accent, and I was like, "Oh, so you've been here for 3 days, babe.
3
Like,
days.
chill out."
Well, I was on Young and the Restless, and they almost fired me.
Okay,
And they said, if you want to be 3 years on the show, you're gonna have to figure out that accent. Because I was like, "Oh, Victor, don't go over there."
Yeah.
Like in the middle, it would just kind of like fall off the edge.
I think it's a. So my husband lost a little bit when he was in America. In America, Americans are intolerant to people who are different. You'd be like, "Can I get a water?" And they'd be like, "What?
What?
What do you want? You're a fucking waiter. What do you think he wants? What other word
He's like,
starts
"What's
with a
a
W?"
water?"
So like, I'd hear him on the phone talking to like a real estate agent or like whatever, and he'd be like, 104 Piccadilly Road. He'd change his accent. So it makes sense to me. Here in Australia, they've been consuming American content
Yeah.
like a nipple. It's the milk that fuels, it's the music, it's the television show, it's the movies. So my
Yeah.
accent to them, they don't even know that it's different.
I honestly didn't really clock that you had an American accent until halfway through the interview.
Yeah. I love
I
that.
was like,
It's such a
wait.
win for me.
I
I
was
thought
like,
it was going to be problematic for my work. It hasn't been.
Yeah, I thought, yeah. I
But
was
the
like,
best Aussie saying is, "We're not here to fuck spiders."
Oh,
There's no
someone said that.
competition.
That's new though.
Is it?
When I grew up here, there was no such "we're not here to fuck spiders."
I've heard like, "We're not here to put socks on caterpillars." Like much older people say that. But if you're American and you come into this country and you hear "we're not here to fuck spiders," you're like, what is going on?
It's just it's just in a normal sentence for people.
Totally normal.
Yeah.
Like
We're not
wasting time here.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
we're not here to fuck.
And the
What about get a
fact,
dog up? Yeah, have you heard of that?
what? What did you just? What just came out of your mouth?
Get a dog up, yeah.
No, but I love it.
What about oh, he's shitting bricks.
I've heard shit and bricks. That's a good one.
Um,
Americans say shit and bricks.
they do.
Yeah, my dad used to say that.
Shitting bricks. Get a dog up, yeah, like that one.
I have never heard that. I love that.
Bogan, that's great.
Yeah, I just like the way it feels. There's something about that feels Aussie.
Bogan.
It's a good word.
Bogan. And then your biggest shit show moment.
Is this
Anything.
funny or serious?
Whatever you want.
Because
we've had all of the above.
Because if you just did an actual, like my shit show was going to be like a poop diary story, but I feel like you just had one. So I don't want to
We might not have that episode before you.
That's true. But then my actual
Have you
biggest
had a poop
shit.
story?
What?
Have you had a poop
Oh,
story?
definitely. Oh, for sure.
Like, I didn't know this until this show, but like people have pooped their pants a lot. I've only done it once.
I've definitely only done it once. And
okay, there you go.
And it's like in the Daily Mail. Like there's articles written about it. Like that's where I'm at with that shit.
Why? Because you told it?
Because I've told it before, so maybe I shouldn't tell it. I shit my pants when I walked into a job interview.
No.
And I went to go shake his hand. And then I thought, oh my God, I just shit my pants. But then I thought, don't worry, you'll just be able to go to the bathroom. Like just except it was one of those.
Why were you sick?
No, I had 3 coffees. It was like I just moved to New York.
It just
I
went
was
through you.
3 Starbucks. I got there an hour early because I didn't understand trains. It was like I had been farting all morning for sure. So I thought this is just another fart. This is just going to be another little squeak. And then I go, okay, it's fine. We can fix this. We can go throw the underwear away in the bathroom. And he goes, take a seat. And the interview is the place in which I've shaken his hand. It's just like the room we're in now. It's just like a loft. I sat there for 45 minutes in my shit. Couldn't hear a single word he said because all I could think about is like all the women. There was all women flanking me on the left and right. I'm like, they know. They know. And when I didn't get the job, I was like, yeah, because I shit my pants because the office smelled like shit for a year.
Did you wet the seat? Like, was there a mop?
Oh, I got up. It was not wet at all. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, it's like when you get your period as a woman, you're like, oh God, did I leave it on the seat?
I actually don't know that experience, but I've heard rumors.
But nothing.
Nothing.
You were fine.
Went to the bathroom, took my underwear off, threw it in the bin, did a little wipe, called my dad crying. I'm like, Dad, I just shit my pants in an interview. He goes, oh, everyone's done that. I've done that. I was like, oh, must run in the family.
Yeah, I was hiking. I don't know what happened. I think it was just a Chinese food, and I don't know.
Hiking makes sense. Like that's where you should be sharding.
And there's no ever toilets.
Of course not. But
like where do people go to the bathroom and hike?
I mean, have you ever watched Survivor or Alone? They use a leaf.
I don't think that'd be great. I like glamping, but not really.
No, it's not for me at all.
Yeah,
like if I have to use a leaf and get a rash from a leaf, then I want nothing to do with it.
No.
I'd rather use my hands and then like dip it in the water from the lake.
I think I've done that before, somewhere camping on some girl's trip. And on that note,
what a great way to
Sean
end.
Szeps. What did I get the last name right? Szeps.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Szeps. Thank you so much for coming. You have made my entire day.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.